Well, it's 5:30. It's time to call our meeting to order for Monday, January 29th. Carl, roll call, please.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne.
Here.
Lunsman.
Here.
Slate Hansen. Johnson.
Here.
Bunceness.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Rux.
Here.
Mayor Leifson.
I'm here. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need a motion to approve last week's minutes.
Moved. Second.
Motion Johnson, second by Bunceness. If there are no changes, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. Under open forum tonight, we have two presentations scheduled. The first, Mike Mockerney from the Aberdeen Development Corp.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for taking a couple minutes out of your evening. Just wanted to come in and give everybody a couple updates on a couple of initiatives that we're working on currently. The first one is working on, obviously, continued recruitment, retention, and expansion of businesses here. We have engaged and hired a company out of Des Moines, Iowa, called Smart Solutions Group, with the idea to create essentially more leads for us. This is obviously focused and targeted on businesses that are not currently operating here in Aberdeen, the large majority of them not even in South Dakota, but creating the leads for us. This is a process that has taken many months to get to. The first steps, and some of you guys were involved in these first steps, we're visiting with these folks, and what they've come back to us with is 4 key areas that they're going to focus on trying to gain us leads in. And these are 4 areas that I think we're probably all, if we had to just list the 4 that we thought would be most likely to get after, it probably turned out to be that way. Those 4 areas are value-added ag logistics, manufacturing, and then financial services. Now, we didn't provide any information to Smart Solutions prior to them coming here. We wanted them to have a very unbiased, open mind in going through and reviewing all the information and looking at our community, and also visiting with the community leaders and doing the series of questions that they asked. Now, of course, under each of these 4 areas, there are numerous subsets underneath each of those that they will focus in on, based on what we can and provide here in our community, and some of the things that we already have in place here that might make really good sense for a company looking to either relocate. Most likely it'll probably be an expansion opportunity where they would maybe be looking for a second or third location for their business and seeing if they can match Aberdeen with that particular business. That process will begin in earnest now that we have identified those over the next probably couple of months. And then there'll be a lot of follow-up after that, and we'll start to engage those interested entities and see if we are potentially a good match. Additionally, we work with a group that's called the Community Venture Network. This is something that, for lack of a better term, it kind of sort of works like the show Shark Tank, where there are communities that belong to this group. And 3 times a year, the meetings are held in Minneapolis, and companies actually come before the communities that are involved in this, and the companies present on themselves. And they are most often companies looking either to relocate or for an additional location for their entity. Some of these are true startups, and those are a little bit more challenging, something that we're not probably set up to do. As some other larger communities are. But for instance, the last time that we went in, the meeting was in December. There was 13 companies who presented, excuse me, and 2 of them we continue to be engaged with, and we actually have one coming to visit our community in the first week in February. That one seems to be a very logical fit. We specifically chose this group to belong to because this group focuses on bringing in businesses that are looking for and thrive in communities of 50,000 or less people. So kind of right in our wheelhouse. These are companies that really do not want to be involved in the Minneapolis, the Des Moines, even the Sioux Falls and Rapid Cities. They're just not good fits for their particular company. So we're excited about what that looks like into the future. In terms of retention, there's a lot of things that I can't be specific on, but we are seeing some pretty healthy growth in most areas of manufacturing in our community and even in Northeast South Dakota. The manufacturing climate overall in the United States has improved significantly. That said, there's always challenges, and we'll continue to work through those as we move forward. Another thing that we are seeing is you're starting to see some things that are happening in the worldwide economy starting to have a direct effect right here for companies that exist in Aberdeen, especially in the areas of defense and also value-added ag. Specifically those countries that are in the Pacific Rim areas, a lot of value-added ag companies that reside here in Northeast South Dakota provide a lot of products to those areas of the world, and the growth there has been very, very solid. So we're very excited about that. I think that provides some good opportunities for continued growth in the future. And again, like I said, local expansions have been occurring in both not only the number of employees, but also in the equipment and automation upgrades that companies have begun to put forward. There's a couple companies in town, one in particular that has spent over about $2.2 million in the last 6 months on equipment upgrades in their facility. And if you're not doing well, you're probably not going to make that kind of investment. So that's always very good to see. Overall, in our area, unemployment obviously continues to be low. That's a challenge for us. But we also just recently took a hard look at the surrounding states to South Dakota. And believe it or not, we're actually in a little bit better shape than our surrounding states are. So when we start to compare apples to apples, when we get in competition, lots of times our competition exists. If a company is looking at coming into Aberdeen, they're also maybe looking at a community in, say, Nebraska or something like that. Nebraska has the second lowest unemployment in the entire United States right now. So it becomes very, very challenging and very, very difficult for them to recruit those companies, where we are just a tiny bit higher, but that obviously does weigh in our advantage. We've also done a significant study, which we've, along with the Smart Solutions Group, the reason we did this is we wanted to find out exactly, for somebody to relocate to Aberdeen, what is the target job wage? What exactly is it that they're looking for? What would get somebody to relocate to our community beyond the fact that that we've had great housing, school systems, et cetera? What do they need to make? What does it get somebody to get excited to move to Aberdeen about? That was a very interesting study that we did. It showed us some very interesting things. I'm not going to blurt out loud what that dollar amount per hour number came to, because I don't want any of our competitors here in South Dakota to know what that is here, because if they want it, then they're going to have to do the work that we did. We know certainly that the future has challenges, but I think overall as a community we're very, very prepared. We have learned over the last probably 12 to 18 months, and working very closely with the county and also with the city, specifically the staff that's here tonight, Robin and Brett and their groups, and specifically Lynn. We've spent a lot of time talking a lot about infrastructure. What does our infrastructure currently look like? What is the city's plans? How does that affect us? Really trying to make sure that we communicate with each other to ensure that we're bringing in and recruiting, and we're after the right businesses, and we're also making sure that we understand when somebody comes to us with an expansion opportunity, what can we handle infrastructure-wise, and really stay focused on that, so we're not spending time recruiting or working with somebody that we really can't help. We don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that we do well. And overall, I think our attitude is very exciting, very good. It's very exciting to be involved in the community of Aberdeen. Had somebody comment recently that's actually been looking. They looked at 6 different communities in South Dakota, and it didn't take them very long to eliminate the other 5, which leaves us standing. Now, whether or not we get a deal with them, I don't know, but at least we've eliminated the other 5. And their comment is that when they're meeting with the officials here in Aberdeen, they've never been told, well, we can't do that. It's, well, that's going to be a challenge, but let's figure out a way to make it happen and to get it done. That's the attitude that Aberdeen has presented, and the others, there's just too many roadblocks. So with that, I think I'll end my comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions from anybody if anybody has anything.
What can you tell us about progress with AGP? How are they doing?
They are very far ahead of schedule. It helps when it doesn't snow a lot. Their equipment has come in. They've been very pleased with the contractors, and with the open winter, they've been able to really move very, very well. So still a lot of work to do, but I'm not going to comment on the timeline that they've given me, but I think that they're going to, unless something falls apart here, they're going to be open much sooner than what they had originally thought. So very good. They're very very excited to be here.
Any update on new things that are happening downtown?
Yeah, a number of different things. I feel we've worked very closely with the Downtown Association, and we're working on one really large project right now. We've got a couple I's and a couple I's to dot, a couple T's to cross, and hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. I wish I could say more, but we've been working on this one for about 26 or 27 months, so it's kind of exciting. You get that nervous excitement when you get toward the end, because you want it to work, but it's got to work for everybody involved, because we take the attitude that we're running a marathon here and not a sprint. So we want to make sure this is the right thing, not only for the Development Corporation, but also, more importantly, what's the right thing for our community of Aberdeen as a whole. I think you've seen some really exciting things happen downtown, though. You're starting to see some people do some different things with their storefronts. You're seeing some new businesses. You're seeing the new co-location of the folks right next to the Brass Kettle, which is really exciting. I've said this before, but I like working with anybody on any project. I think the ones that feel the best are those that start off with just an idea, and they start off as just somebody who's kind of on their own, and then they grow. And I think Arrow Boutique is a great example of that. That young lady has worked very, very hard, and now has got herself to this point where she's going to have a new location. I think some of her success is probably due to the fact that I'm pretty sure my wife has maybe possibly completely supported her business. But she's got some really great products in there, and they're at she's very, very good at price pointing some different things. And you've seen that with Farmer's Wife Boutique and Charisma, and some of those very successful businesses that are locally owned. It's really fun to see those things work well.
One of the questions that I've gotten is with Molded is, why are we trying to sell the building when they're back in? Can you address that?
I'll address it to the best of my ability that I can. They've got an extension of a contract that'll take them through August or September. After that, they don't have any guarantee. I will tell you that I don't think as a community that we could ask for any one company to do any more than they are in doing everything they possibly can to stay here even longer than that. They've made it very clear to me that they would love to continue to operate here in Aberdeen. And it's just one of those things. I think when we all realized that when they came here, and you announced that they have one customer, which is General Electric. Who would have ever thought that General Electric would have imploded like they have over the last couple of years? I mean, General Electric's one of the longest, most populous companies in the entire world, and they've had some real challenges. So I've have every intent that and hope that Molded Fiberglass will be able to continue to operate here. They're a great employer. They're very enjoyable to work with, and we're certainly going to continue to do everything we possibly can to assist them in their efforts.
One more. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
you've hit on some of your strategic priorities. How are you doing on the others?
Yeah, without wanting to sit here and take up all night long, I can tell you that there's a copy. I have one document. If anybody's ever been in my office, I'm extraordinarily organized, and I have like nothing sitting on my desk except for that one document because I never take our eye off that. And I can tell you that on all of our priorities, we are continue to be very diligent, and I think we've been successful on achieving some strides in all of them. Now we have set out some goals here in 2018 to be a little bit more aggressive in a couple of the areas than we have been, but it also took us a little while, like getting to the point where we could hire Smart Solutions, because that's not. I didn't want to just bring somebody in and just hire them and say, okay, go. I wanted to make sure that we were very cognizant and focused on what it is we were trying to recruit, and making sure that it was right for our community, not only for the now, but for the long run. So that's one particular area of focus on the strategic priorities that now in 2018 we'll really be able to take off on that one. We're excited to see what that yields. Of course, the challenge with that is that when you find these companies, it takes time. I always often use the AGP example of they first showed up here in 2001, and then we made the announcement that they were coming here in 2015. Now, I don't think any of us want to sit around and wait 14 years for the next great thing here in Aberdeen, and we'll certainly do whatever we can to make sure that isn't the case. But some of these relationships may be established in the next few months, but nothing may happen. It may take some time. But that said, we have plenty of things in the hopper. In fact, Lynn and I were just talking about one previous to the meeting that it's not going to take 14 years. There's a lot of desire to be here, and we're in pretty good shape to be able to continue to move forward and grow our community in our region.
Anyone else? Well, thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks,
Yep.
everybody.
Yep. Aaron Schultz is next with the 211 rollout.
I have some handouts too.
There's enough for everyone. Okay, and thank you for having me here tonight. I just wanted to give a brief update on where we're at with the 211 rollout. If you remember, this is a collaborative effort between a number of different partners in our community, and obviously the promotional fund is the major catalyst to get to the 211 here in our community. So the goal was always to be able to launch 211 by February 11th, and I'm proud to say that we're all systems go for that. Right now, if we had to launch it tomorrow, we could. We're just going through the final tests, and that is going positive. We're making sure that it is functional within some of our larger systems, the healthcare systems, the school systems,
that when you dial out, you can use 211 as one of the prefixes, and that it's not a preset number in, let's say, a hospital system. And so currently there's 129 programs or entities listed that are housed directly out of Brown County that are listed with 211, and we have access to a little over 800 different programs from a state and national level. And so when somebody will call in, they're able to access upwards of 800 programs, and that's exciting to see. And we're nervous and anxious to see how it turns out, but we're trying to be cautiously optimistic. We don't know what the numbers will be for a full year of service. But what's nice about this program is the fact that there's live data along with this, and I'll show that here in 1 second. I also want to thank, we have a rollout committee that has been instrumental in getting this moving forward. I presented a couple of the marketing pieces, but you'll see this really start rolling out right around that February 11th timeframe between the newspaper and the rollout committee, which is made up of members from Avera and Sanford, Chief McNeil, Councilman Musness, and Northeast Mental Health Center, NSU, and a number of other partners that all want to see this work and have really brought, I would say, uncovered anything that we might be missing. It was really a great group to work with, and we'll see that can continue to roll out with PSAs and also really a big marketing push come mid-February as well. This will be something you'll see quite a bit. This is a pretty standard marketing piece that we'll have, simple dial 211. And we know that we'll have a number of different calls for this. Some will be extremely legitimate. Some will be calling to see when Hardee's is open, and kind of all points in between. You know, as if you open it up to the public public will come in as well. So, but those will get coded as well. And I think once this becomes an established program, those type of calls will soon be eliminated, and it will be a push for social services and government programs in our community. Another key component of this is the texting program. So that next area where it says text your zip code to 898-211, you can text that number and then your zip code, and what pops up immediately is this is the 211 Helpline Center. How can we assist you? And you simply text back and forth with a live individual on the other end. It does take a little time because they are researching and trying to figure out all the different options that are available. I texted with them today and just gave out the example. I'm looking for rental assistance, and they were able to fire back 4 different opportunities for me to find rental assistance. And then ultimately I let them know that this was just a test, and the whole interaction probably lasted somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And so, and they're continuing to work to speed that up to make it almost instantaneous as we text back and forth with individuals. So you can certainly email and also go onto their website for questions as well. The next slide is a hyperlink here, but I took a screenshot of this today. This is real-time data that looks at the last 365 days worth of calls that have come into 211. You'll see that there's over 45,000 calls that came in and honoring close to over 60,000 requests. And as you know, a lot of times that when someone comes in with a presenting problem, that presenting problem leads into further issues that an individual may need help with. And the Helpline Center staff is trained to make sure that they're addressing as many needs as possible. If you get onto the website, you can break it down by the last week, by the last month. You can break it even further down into county by county region. And eventually what will come about from this is after a full year of service within Brown County, we will get a breakdown from the Helpline Center itself, highlighting where the main calls were coded to, whether it be assistance or whether it be information. Obviously, if something happens where county emergency management is called into play, we'll see an uptick with that as well. County emergency management's been great to work with as well. This will be the go-to number to call if something should happen within our community. 211 will activate, and it will be a part of the system to call in to find the most up-to-date information. Also, you'll be able to text in for live updates from whatever emergency management might be putting out at that point. That's really all I had as far as the update I wanted to give to you. I wanted to make sure I was giving you an update prior to the start, about halfway through, and then where we're at 1 year from now. We're very excited for the fact of the live data to see where this is going to grow and how it's going to move forward. And again, say thank you to the promotional fund for allowing to bring this into our community. Right now, the last major communities that do not have 211 within the state of South Dakota would be Watertown and Pierre. And I'm expecting there will be an announcement on another community coming on within the next month or so. At this time, I'd take any questions.
Any questions, anyone?
Well, I just want to say that Aaron, was complimentary to the committee, but really Aaron is the driving force behind this and has done a lot of work. So thank you for all your hard work. These statistics are interesting to me. I think the other category, there's a lot of, so if someone's calling for tax assistance, preparation assistance, that's one of the big numbers under other. But mental health and addictions, I think, is why I got involved in this, because I think the chief can attest to this, is that is something that is becoming more and more something that they see in the field. And Northeastern Mental Health is involved in the committee rollout. They think this is very important to what they're doing. So I think we'll see, and this will tell us how people react. Chief, what are you seeing with this new system?
I would agree and think, Aaron for all his help. If you remember, if you read the Aberdeen American News about 2 weeks ago, there was a story. The 2017 suicide rate was the highest in South Dakota history, according to the state epidemiologist. And, we do have a significant mental health problem in our community, and this helps people acquire those resources, another means and another possibility to go and get help and seek help that they need. So that's a big piece to this. We recently met, the Brown County Communications Council recently met, and we were talking about the high call volume rate and dispatch. So a lot of these statistics are general things, routine calls, and so if we can reduce the call volume in Brown County Dispatch and route people to this resource and where people are actually able to get information and be able to follow up, that makes a big difference. And then the incident command piece with natural disasters or critical incidents, being able to use this tool as a communication tool for the public to get out timely information will be big. But again, going back to the mental health piece, that's a significant thing right now. And we're encouraged and excited about using this and standing it up and making a difference. So thank you.
And this will also be a literature piece that you'll be presenting to folks that may have a consultation with law enforcement, that they will also have a card that has 211 on there, because while it may not be a criminal activity, they may need, individuals may need of resources that 211 could help provide. And again, 211 is the only crisis line directly related for suicide calls in the state of South Dakota. So.
I just did a search for a recycle bin because I needed a recycle bin, and I got the recycle bin, but I wanted to know if there was any information of where I get a recycle bin, and there is none. So we need to get that information out there. So we can drive that cost down.
Absolutely.
Rob?
Yeah, briefly, Aaron. First of all, I agree. What you've done here is terrific, and I appreciate it too. Where is the center? Who
The
takes
Helpline
calls?
Center is actually located in Sioux Falls.
Okay, and for how many communities do they provide?
It's by county basis, and it's right now it's probably the 7 largest counties. Right now, 63% of the citizens of South Dakota are covered under.
But all the communities in South Dakota that are covered are covered through that one
Correct.
facility. Terrific.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's a good use of resources.
Yeah, it's
It'd be better here, but it's a good use of resources.
I believe it's 22 individuals in the call center. Of the 22, 21 have college degrees, and it's manned 24/7.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else comment? Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next on our agenda is our consent calendar of routine city business, items A through E.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Remley and second by Ronayne. Just a comment on it. We have the minutes from the Library Board of Trustees meeting in December, and some of us have made note in the past that Aberdeen is the only city of any size in South Dakota where our residents and our children can't get in their library on Sunday. I see that the library board has allocated $23,000 for a strategic plan, and I'm glad to see that Sunday opening is going to be part of the consideration. I will mention I took the initiative to call Brookings and ask how they were doing it. And the city manager there informed me that the total cost for them to be open 3 hours, 50 Sundays a year, is under $9,000. Under $9,000 for the whole year, salaries and benefits. So I would hope that the library board keep this in mind as they work with this strategic group that is studying here, and we can find a way to get kids in our $8 million library on Sunday. So, any other comments on the motion? All in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Under new business, item A, and ordinance amendment. Ron?
Now it gets exciting. So can somebody flip me over? Okay. So, what the council has before it is the proposed ordinance for possible first reading at 180102. Animal Control Officer Weaver is here and present to answer any questions the council might have. I always hate to sit up here and just read the council action requests that I had provided to the council,
Don't do it.
because I'm always very confident of the ability of the council to do its homework and review these. But I do see that sometimes it's helpful for our vast viewing audience out there to review a few of these things. So essentially what we're doing with the change, and this is at the request of our beleaguered, and I want it emphasized, our beleaguered animal control officer, to find another word for vicious. And what we've tried to do throughout the proposed change is to switch out vicious for the word unsafe, because that's really what we're dealing with, are animals that are unsafe. We don't care whether they're a nice dog or a vicious dog. If they're unsafe around other people, that's the concern. If their actions are such that they're unsafe, that's what we want to address. And so that language has been modified throughout the sections provided to the council to try to use the word unsafe. The other changes that I would note have to do with a general reorientation of the controlling body, as that being the Animal Control Authority. That can be both the Animal Control Officer and the Animal Review Board. For our police chief, who's had an opportunity to be on the board, if anybody, for just an edifying experience, you should come and watch an Animal Review Board hearing. It's very interesting. But what we're trying to do is make sure that the ordinance reflects clearly that you have the animal control officer doing the day-to-day determinations, and if necessary, a review would be requested, an appeal would be requested, and that would go to the Animal Review Board, but that those two entities together comprise our Animal Control Authority. The rest of the document deals with addressing some matters that have come up over time. For example, in just the suspension of the determination if you're dealing with an animal or a dog that the animal control officer is not particularly worried about having future problems with, but did in fact act in a certain way that they now fall within the ordinance. We would give him the authority to suspend or modify his determination if he felt it appropriate. And if any of you have spent any time with John Weaver, you would know that he is always looking for a way to deal with a situation that doesn't require going the full extent of his authority. He's very, very good about that. I would ask that the council approve the ordinance as recommended here. I would also add, though, that I know that Councilman Ronayne and Councilman Bunceness are both going to propose some minor changes that, in my opinion, and in that of the animal control officer, are good improvements to it. So as we move forward with this, and that hopefully that amendment process is made, we will be able to approve those as well.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion Ronayne, second by Olson. Comments, questions, amendments?
One quick question. Why remove city police officer on several of these areas? City police officer or animal authority?
In the very first definition at 8-1, animal control officer includes a police officer.
Okay, I must
so
have missed
later
that.
on,
Sorry.
when we make reference to the police officer, we don't need to anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
I would move an amendment to the article that you have up already, Ron, which is 8.38, parentheses B, parentheses 4. And the amendment that I would propose would be to add at the end of that paragraph the phrase, "the amount of such insurance to be determined by the Animal Control Authority." You're supposed to say second.
Oh, sorry, second. I was listening.
We have a motion
Trying to
and
get
a
where
second.
you're
You
at.
have it, Carl?
I believe Ron has it
Yeah, I'll assist.
slow, but,
If I could just clarify
or, yeah, either you or I may.
Yeah.
Yes.
What Rob has proposed is that the language that you see right here where it says by the Animal Control Authority, that be deleted out, but we will take that language and put it at the end of that sentence where it writes an additional insured, comma, the amount of such insurance to be determined by the Animal Control Authority. And that does in fact make it easier to have that determination made by the Animal Control Authority. So I'm in favor of that change.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment?
Yeah, the only comment I was going to make, Mayor, is it was uncertain to me whether the animal owner would be the one who would get to choose the amount of insurance coverage. And I thought that probably isn't where we want to have that discretion. We would probably have that more properly vested in Mr. Weaver.
Okay.
What criteria do you use to judge whether someone's going to get charged or has to have insurance of $500,000 or $1 million?
Well, $500,000 is just about the bare basic insurance that everybody gets on their insurance policies now for liability and things like that. I've dealt with all those things. It ranges there between $350,000, $500,000 is basic to the insurance thing. If I've got a dog that's gone past it's nipped somebody or scratched somebody or done that, they've done real damage, real injury, and it becomes obvious that there might be a real problem in the future. And medical expenses for property damage and stuff can easily go way beyond the basic insurance at that point. I put $1 million insurance policy down because I'm worried that it's going to be very, very expensive if something happens again. From the indications of what we had with the first.
So there really isn't any case that we would be at the 500,000 if you're dealing with this section of the ordinance?
If you've got a small dog that's nipped somebody and the circumstances were such that it was not so much that the dog was aggressive or anything, but because of the circumstances, I go with the normal basic liability policies, which usually run $500,000 for everything nowadays, and that's where we're at. That's where the insurance companies put them out there. It's only if there's something really, really outrageous where the dog has done real injury and people just will refuse to give up the dog. And then I feel that the city needs to be covered so that nobody goes looking for us for medical expenses because we allow them to have inadequate amounts.
So this is kind of a tool we have if the language of the ordinance keeps us from getting rid of the dog, you can at least attach some punitive cost to the people to keep it?
Well, punitive, I'm not out to punish anybody for having this sort of stuff. When I have to make these decisions about how much insurance a dog should have, I also take a look at the owner. If he's not accepting responsibility for his dog being the reason why they're in that situation, why there's somebody sitting in the hospital with 100 stitches and things like that, but yet they want to fight to get their dog. It seems to me that we need to have the ability to say, okay, if you're going to fight and have the dog and get the dog back, which has happened here, that we need to have it adequately financed so that when something else bad happens, that we weren't able to convince people of to begin with, then the poor folks that do get injured and stuff are covered completely, and so is the city.
Can I add to that? I think part of what John is trying to say and being very tactful about it, I sit on that animal review board, and occasionally we don't agree on what should be done with the animal. So this kind of is an extra step for us beyond euthanizing the animal.
Okay.
I just like some clarification here, because I didn't think that this was a little dog nipping at that didn't fall under dangerous and vicious animal or dangerous or unsafe animal. You're telling me that a little dog that nips someone can be considered dangerous?
If it falls in the past, when it fell underneath the ordinance, which a bite would put it underneath, then that's the title of the ordinance. And that's what we would have to say it was, because that's what the ordinance says it is. Now, I say, well, okay, your dog is unsafe because it's an axiom in animal control work that if a dog bites once, it'll bite twice.
Okay.
And there it is. And I try to juggle to adequately cover the dog. If it's a little dog that the grandkids came and visit grandma's dog, and grandma's dog isn't used to having kids and stuff around, and it sniffs somebody, well, that's one thing. If you've got a dog that's chased a child down the street on a bicycle, pull him off and tore him off the bed.
Right.
If you want to keep that dog, we need to have it covered adequately.
What I'm, this basically came from the discussion of banning pit bulls when we had some attacks years ago. Some of the members weren't present at that time, and so that's what I'm kind of going back to that time frame where these were some of the serious things that happened to individuals. And that's why, I think this was the compromise. For me, it wasn't a compromise because I wanted him gone. but it was looked upon as the compromise. Do you agree with that, Mayor? So that's where I struggle with, do we need to have a range of liability here, or do we just set the liability and it is at the higher amount?
To add to that, Brett and I are both on that animal review board. Many times it's very difficult for people to find insurance after a bite. And I know a lot of times people look in different states and areas to find this insurance. And given the context of the situation as John's talking about, based on the animal, its history, having that range sometimes helps us make a workable solution that is a common sense approach to this. And again, I would invite anybody to come to that process. It's a great due process hearing, and John does a great job, but it helps us manage a solution. And we share your same concerns with an animal, its history, its propensity to cause harm, the smaller dog versus the bigger dog, all those things are taken in context. But we've run up against several situations where people just cannot find insurance, and they have to destroy that animal because they can comply with all the other elements, but they can't find insurance. So,
Other comments on the motion to amend? All in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I have, I feel pretty strongly about this, and I want maybe a discussion before I offer. I talked to Ron earlier about this. I understand the reason to get the word vicious out of here, but, I come from the time that we had this discussion regarding pit bulls. And when you have a mother that comes with a story that her son got bit and just barely missed his eye, and some of the other stories that you hear, this is serious business. And so I'm not inclined to take the word vicious out of the ordinance because I think it's a great descriptive word. And maybe my proposal was to keep, just to add or unsafe to it. I understand I think I understand what you might face, but I also want the people that have had the unfortunate experience of running up against these vicious dogs. That's not, I frankly could care less about the people that are offended by the word vicious. You go talk to the people that have been harmed by these dogs, and then you come talk to me. So I want to know if there is any interest in keeping the word vicious in this language and just adding or unsafe. You give him the out that he can call it whatever he wants to, but I think I think I owe it to those people that came here with their concerns about these dogs. So I'm looking for some help.
If I'm correct, South Dakota state law still says vicious?
Yeah, it's defined. We have in here 40-34-14 defines vicious dogs.
I'm not opposed to it, Dave.
The one thing, go ahead. The one thing in the field that John experiences frequently dealing with animals are people view their pets as other humans. It's very emotionally charged environment. And being in that animal review board, every situation is different. And I share your concern with some of the bigger breeds and the more powerful breeds. But unsafe seems to be a term that people can understand in the context of the situation. If there's a long-term family pet that is bitten twice, and we're explaining to that family or that person that this pet now unfortunately has to have these further restrictions, or we have to look at euthanization, the unsafe piece seems to fit the circumstance versus that label of viciousness. And I understand what you're talking about. We deal in the truth. We talk to people and we tell them the way it is. But correct me if I'm wrong, John, here. This helps a little bit in the field explaining the situation to a person, and maybe there's less emotion, or it makes your explanation or providing, a remedy for this a little bit easier?
Well, it does. And really, it hasn't, calling it unsafe has had no impact on the victims. And we've had any number of dog bites, cat bites, guinea pig bites this year that have been pretty bad and stuff like that. But dealing with the owners, this seems to give them one less handle to jump up and demand to have. It's like a personal attack on them for us to say that your dog is vicious and dangerous. I spent a lot of time trying to convince people to do the common sense thing, that there's dangers out there. Not only this happened, but the future problems could happen. And trying to get people to do the right thing gets to be very, very hard. And I understand completely what you're saying. My drill sergeant explained the world to me very directly, and I've done, and it makes sense, but the rest of the world doesn't seem to be in that way. So saying it's unsafe, but yet doing the exact same thing we would do anyway, I think is something that the city could profit with.
Looking at this from, as Dave said, from the point of view of the victim, it occurs to me that a victim looking for some satisfaction in a civil court would greatly enjoy approaching a jury in a civil court saying the dog was convicted or was found to be in violation and acted in a vicious way rather than unsafe. So to me, for a victim trying to get some compensation, something that actually describes what happened, it's not our job to help people with civil suits, but it occurs to me that for the victims, as Dave mentioned, this might come into play.
I think what Dave is trying to do, though, is not take unsafe out.
Right.
But just keep vicious in there. And I see where Dave's going, because I think there are those bites or attacks that go beyond the pale of probably an unsafe. And you could use any of the language you want, but I think there are those attacks out there that you could truly call vicious. And this is a vicious animal who has no other intent but to do harm. And like I say, I think all Dave wants to do is just give you 3 options instead of 2.
David, you ready to tell us what you want to do with an amendment?
I would amend that anywhere where in the ordinance that dangerous and vicious, or let me get where dangerous or vicious and vicious has been struck, that it would be changed to dangerous, vicious, or unsafe.
Second.
Comments on the motion to amend?
And that would include in section 12 where vicious was not struck. Is that what we talked about earlier, or?
You want me to show that to you?
Yeah.
That was, I'm sorry.
We're still there in 2A also.
Yeah. That's because we were talking about the use of the word vicious in other jurisdictions. That would remain as is. Okay.
Questions on the amendment?
I would comment. I was happier with the original ordinance as written. I just adding to what the chief has said. It just helps us to keep an objective view of this. I have a scar on my lower leg from a bite that occurred, and there's an array, a wide range of perceptions of what an attack is like if you've ever been bitten by a dog. And in truth, it may look to the individual being bitten, or even to an observer, that it's it's vicious at that moment, but that dog may not actually be that kind of a dog. It just happened to react that way at that moment. And I'd rather keep it more in just an objective way, and unsafe and dangerous seems to accomplish that. I'm not sure that I would support this, Dave. I'm happy with the way it was originally.
One quick
Mark?
thing. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, go.
I was just going to say, I think we need to trust our law enforcement people to make the right decisions in this and go from there.
Chief, you had a comment?
I was just going to say what we've experienced sometimes in the animal review process is that we have victims that were familiar with the dog or a family member or friend, and they're reluctant to even report those situations because of their fear of the perception that they're going to cause the demise of their friend's dog or this label that's going to be placed. So again, whatever you decide, that unsafe term really helps us, maybe by people coming forward and reporting these bites and working with us too. A lot of times you have people that are bitten and they come in, they advocate for keeping the dog alive and that process that plays out too. So whatever you decide is going to be best, but that term unsafe does help us quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it covers the universe. It can include vicious, but doesn't have to say it. That just inflates the severity of it, and perhaps unnecessarily.
One last thing, though, is when it says dangerous, vicious, or unsafe, I agree that it does cover the gamut, but there are times, I think Dave's right, there are times when vicious just plain fits the bill. And if you have the alternative of you got dangerous or you got unsafe, or when it is vicious, why not call it what it is? I get what you're saying. I'm just I see where Dave's coming from. If somebody has a small child and their leg is mangled up from a dog, do we just call it that was dangerous? It was a dangerous dog.
It was unsafe.
It was. I mean,
I think that the situation you're describing, that is a dangerous animal, and there's going to be further restriction. There's some flexibility in the things that John can place on the dog based on the situation, the size of the dog, its propensity to cause harm. So you're talking about, that big, physically strong dog, whatever breed that is, that could cause some harm or did cause some serious harm. That dog is dangerous, and John will employ all the elements of the statute or the city ordinance to make sure that that dog's not going to harm again. The example John used earlier of the smaller dog that stands 5 or 10 inches off the ground, still we don't want that dog to bite again, but maybe there'd be less requirement and that term would be more applicable. So you're right, certain terms fit certain situations, so having a couple terms helps us. As John's working in the field with people trying to explain, why he's employing the ordinance the way he is, this helps, I think, on certain situations, and again, maybe it helps sometimes the reluctant victim to come forward knowing that they're not causing the demise or, that's our thought. But whatever you decide, ultimately we have the state law. So a lot of times if people are charged, they can be charged under the state law, and those terms will never go away under the law's definition of that as well.
I just think even the word unsafe alone by itself could help the board in their determinations and give them the latitude. Unsafe could include dangerous, could include vicious. So I'm very fine with the chief and the animal control officer's recommendation.
Me and David, Mike could probably be on opposite ends on this, but I agree with this because I think vicious more as you use the example of the dog running a kid down on a bike, pulling him off the bike and attacking him. To me, that's definitely more of what I would consider vicious. And this is not taking away the ability to use the term unsafe, but I think if it's defined in state law, it could be also kept in this and give you, because like I say, there are times when this animal is just a vicious animal. It was a vicious attack, and we have to call it for what it is. And now if you have that little dog where a kid happened to meander into the length of the dog's leash and just nipped at it, okay, it's unsafe or it's dangerous. You can use whatever term you want, but I think that there are times when an attack and a dog just has to be called for what it is, and that's vicious.
So tell me, in the years that this ordinance has been in place and you've had animal review boards meet, what outcome would have changed if the wording would have been unsafe from the get-go?
Well, that's impossible to say, because if a dog's a bad dog and a danger, then we're doing everything so that it doesn't continue to be a danger in the community.
We had, John, if I can speak up, we had a recent, and Brett, help me here, animal review board where the insurance hinged on the definition of the dog. So because we were using the term vicious, they weren't able to get insurance. And if there was something of a lesser term, they were able to. Is that correct, Brett, if I remember that
They weren't
correctly?
able to get the higher end insurance.
Yeah. So it does make a little bit of difference in keeping the dog around and applying the insurance based on the view of the insurance company. So again, given the context of the situation, the dog, what's happened, and what we're determining helps a little bit to keep the dog.
So it was referenced that this dog was dangerous, was vicious?
Was vicious.
So
because of the viciousness term, or being coined vicious by ordinance.
So if unsafe was added, you could have said unsafe.
That was my belief, yes. Yep.
Okay. So what did this dog do that you thought it was vicious?
Yeah.
Attacked the mailman.
Yep.
And if it wouldn't have been for his keychain, he probably would have had some major damage to his leg. I'm only asking is that we keep the word in with the other terms. You know, can we not do something for the victims?
We ready to vote?
I'm curious, what was the outcome of that case relating to the dog? What happened to the dog in that case? What was the outcome?
Well, Ron, is it okay to talk about this?
Yes.
All right. So basically, we went through a process, and it got to the point where the person was not going to be able to find insurance, and we had determined that this dog was going to be euthanized. And at the last hour, last minute, they had found a place that would provide the insurance. So we worked that out. They found insurance. Mr. Weaver enacted several different pieces of the ordinance to make sure they were going to take further precaution with the animal, so the animal stayed alive.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote on this. There's only 8 of us, so it would, still?
Just a question to clarify, is this next vote only on the amendment?
Yep. Okay. So it would take 5 positive votes to pass the amendment. Roll call. A yes vote adds the word vicious. Carl?
Councilmember Remley?
No.
Ronayne?
No.
Lunsman?
Yes.
Johnson?
No.
Yes.
Lunsnitz? Olson?
No.
Mayor Leveson?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
And yes for me also.
That's 4-4.
4-4. So the motion fails. Gets us back to discussion on the main amendment as including Mr. Ronayne's amendment that passed.
I have an amendment to section, paragraph 2A. And what is it, 8-10 or 8-36?
Yeah.
8-36. 2A, want to add the chapter 40-34-14. Right now it just says 40-34. And Ron added or a similar statute or law of another jurisdiction.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Could you tell us, Ron, what we're doing here?
That came up. Dave asked whether this would apply then to animals coming in from other jurisdictions, and wondered if we should make that change, which was an excellent change. So we went to the specific statute that defines what a vicious dog is, and we changed that to vicious animal. And then we've also included that language, or if it's similar statute or law of another jurisdiction. If we have a vicious animal, dangerous animal coming into the city of Aberdeen from somewhere else.
Good catch.
Questions on the amendment? If not, all in favor of approving that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And with that change, as well as our previous one, we're back to discussion of the main motion to pass this for first reading. Other discussion of that? Carl, roll call for first reading.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
No.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. Next on our agenda, coming back to us after some discussion last week, petition of voluntary annexation. Brett, why don't you bring us up to date on what's gone on with this to bring it tonight?
This annexation is brought forth in order to apply for a TIF and develop this property. They're requesting to annex 135.7 acres. We did remove some platted lands that they requested to have taken out of the annexation, and we request that you approve this.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Ronayne, second by Johnson. Any questions from anyone?
Yeah, I see we didn't get an updated map, but we did get an updated legal description that scratches out the areas that they.
Your map is updated.
Yeah. In the agenda packet, the map was updated.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the wrong corner. I'm sorry. Apologize.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second to approve the annexation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item C is the appointment of John Hoffman to the Business Improvement District 2 Board, and entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second by Remley. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item D, patiently waiting tonight. Al, are you going to introduce this, or the chief? All right. Okay, a request to create and add a new position in the Fire and Rescue Department.
Correct. We have not been full since 2013, and our last paramedic student that we have gotten out of a program was June of 2015. So our ability to get staff from different paramedic programs has literally dried up. And what we'd like to do is create a position of director of training and have our own in-house paramedic program. And so we can get local individuals and run them through the system and start counting them as soon as possible.
Move approval.
Second.
I didn't hear the first motion. Was motion Remley, second by Rux. Lynn, do you want to give us your view on this first before we discuss?
Oh, certainly, thank you. Based upon where he currently sits, even with this position being approved this year, the likelihood of replacing those 7 individuals is near to none. And so it will actually have no fiscal impact for year 2018.
Correct.
And if we're fortunate and he does get a full complement, I probably don't see the full impact of this additional hire until the middle part of 2019. So from an administrative view, we have more than enough time to adjust for this added position for the future. And I think it's the only alternative that will work for staffing levels at this time.
Other questions from anyone? Al, while you're here, while we have the opportunity to maybe get something in the paper, what's a person who would go through this and start with this in the Fire and Rescue Department? Maybe we can attract some people by telling them how valuable a job this is.
You bet. I'll sit if you're ready. Well, we've started just a little history, Mayor. We've exhausted all of our avenues. We've been through the McKinnon program in Sioux Falls was one of the areas that we had. That's bought out by an ambulance service, so we're not getting any individuals from that, and so consequently, the Aberdeen or the Lake Area VOTEC is put on by the Watertown Fire Department, so consequently, they're not going to train firefighters for Aberdeen Fire and Rescue, and now Rapid City is doing this. we've looked at this a lot, and we've worked. This is kind of, I mean, to be very honest with you, this is real exciting because not only is it for the Aberdeen Fire and Rescue, you know, we plan on getting a couple classes on. We're looking at this maybe possibly a regional area. There's never been a paramedic program that you can sit here, you can work here in Aberdeen, and do that outside of the McKinnon program was kind of tough because of the distance. So, you know, we've worked on this through different agencies, and it's all ended up falling apart at the end. So, not that we're in crisis mode, but I'm sure the chief would probably say we're in crisis mode right now with the 7 openings that we've got. You know, here's an opportunity that he can recruit an individual coming out of high school and looking at taking the EMT basic program, which we offer, and we'll be putting that on, and seeing if it's an interest in their area, and so consequently they can get into that, and then looking at a paramedic program either on our staff, and we're looking at, by doing this, we're looking at them to get some, so to speak, skin in the game. You know, say we charge $8,000 for the program, we're looking at having them put some money towards that, and then if they stay with us over 5 years, we'll forgive some of the money that they put in the program. So they've got some type of commitment to us that they're going to stay. And so we're going to really look at the EMT basics that want to continue their education. Money-wise, I think, what do we start at EMT basic? 41, and then paramedics at 47? Yeah, 47.50. So you can see, so if I'm a high school graduate and I want to get in the EMS area, I can locally, with this position, can take a EMT basic program, see if I like that, and if I really want to continue with that area, I can see when the next paramedic program is in town, rather than I have to ship them out to Century College in the cities or FM Ambulance in Fargo-Moorhead. I can do that in town. And hopefully we can also do it that we can get some programs going that accommodate individuals that are working 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and possibly working some programs like that. So,
and the chief tells me we're very competitive salary-wise.
We are. We are. I mean, I'm sure right now, you know, the last individuals that we recruit, you know, came from Idaho, Wyoming, and worked for us a year and a half, and getting homesick and returned to the area when, you know, so we're looking at, you know, not that we're not going to take outside individuals, but we're looking at some individuals that want to contribute to the community and want to develop a career rather than a job, and therefore, and we have, and the key thing is we have staff that can do this. We have 2 facilities, 2 hospitals that are, we've had our conversations with, are excited about it, and so we're going to probably put out, knowing how this is going to end up, I won't see the end of it, but I think they're going to put on a very nice program. So,
or you can come visit.
I will to them. Like,
was that an announcement of retirement?
June is. I'm looking at June there, Dave. Yeah.
Questions on the motion to add the position?
Real quick, how long is the program?
3 months, or the paramedic would be 3 months, and then that would be the classroom, and then all your ride time and your clinicals probably be about another 3 to 4 months.
Okay. How many people are you planning that you can handle?
175.
Ideally, what are you looking? What are you hoping for?
8 to 10.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a pretty realistic number. And
Randy, when you mean 3 months, you should clarify. Are you talking 40 hours a week for 3 months?
8 to 5.
Okay.
And the reason we come up with that's what Rapid City. Right. Rapid City has had the same issue in the past years. They have done the same thing. They've brought somebody in to do this. They do it all in-house, and their program is 3 months classroom, and then your clinicals right at time. So okay. Obviously, this is not a big change in the next 3 months. This is a big picture. So,
any other questions on the motion? All those in favor of adding that position, then say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Good luck. Next item on the agenda from Robin. Recycling contract, Robin?
Well, it's been 5 years since we visited this, and you can see that we only had one bid. Dependable has done our recycling process for the last 15 years. I had to go back and take a look to see how long it's been, and actually had to revisit the funding or how much it cost us at the very beginning. So I'm gonna pull up a spreadsheet here just to give you a quick look at where we're at compared to other communities. And this is taken from the AE2S study that I think Marie or Lynn have sent you copies of this every year. This actually, I looked at the communities that are below us for cost. There are a lot of communities, by the way, that do not report how much they're charging for recycling. So you can't ascertain off of that study. But for the purposes of this, the ones that did report, we had, I think, 31 communities that reported in the region. And you can see that the composite average was $4.55 a month. And that in 2005, 5 of those same communities did report, and they were at $3.80 average per month. Then I wanted to see where we were at originally for this. And bear in mind that this contract is for 5 years, and that they're going to have to hold their price for 5 years. So if you see a fairly large jump, and you do in this particular one, I can attribute it to 2 things. First of all, I think the last 5 years we were paying substantially lower than market cost or price. Secondly, they have to cover the costs of fuel and labor increases and all those things over the course of the entire life of the contract. This does not give them the option to come back and ask for more. So if you take a look at what we were being charged back in 2002 when this started, it was $2.75. If you inflate that, and the CPI for the last 10 years has been approximately 1.7%, and that's why I chose that number. But if you take a look at that, the yellow highlighted number for that particular contract, you'd see that the price would now be in the neighborhood of $3.60, would be a similar market price. If you look at the 2008 cost, where we were at $2.49, you would see that we would be at, inflating it at 1.7, you'd be at $2.95. The only reason why I'm pointing that out is that this is being asked at $2.97. So it's in the range of where we would expect it to be for what we had paid originally on this, and we're well below the averages regionally. So with that said, we recommend approval of the bid by Dependable Sanitation.
Second.
Motion Ronayne, second by Remley, to approve the bid of $2.97 per unit. Questions from the council?
Question here. So we see on that chart that the contract amount is $297. Can you continue on the far right column and show, you can pop that up again. What will the customer charge be then? Will that be changing?
We will need to adjust the customer charge, and that was something we left open. That'll be a discussion for probably a month or 2 down the road.
Typically, we do that in November of each year for the calendar year, but because of this increase, we will sit back and reevaluate how much that we need additional for advertising and marketing of the plan, and we'll let you know what our recommendation is in the near future.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? If not, we have a motion and a second to accept the bid of $2.97 per unit from Dependable Sanitation. All in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike. Item F, Robin, request to purchase 2 pickups from state contracts for Public Works, Traffic Control, and Street Divisions.
And actually what this is, it's at the state contract price, but we're looking to do it through a local vendor. As you'll recall, many times in the last 10 years, what we've tried to do is see if the local vendors would meet the state contract price. In this case, Pearson's have offered to meet that contract price, and we're asking for the purchase of the 2 pickups at the prices listed in here from Pearson's.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Ruck, second by Roney. Should have invited Todd to be a witness to this.
I was going to say, Todd would be proud.
Yeah.
Mike?
What condition are the 2 trucks in that they're replacing, Robin?
The one in street is not great. The one in traffic control actually is going to get moved down to the engineering department. We take the leftovers typically. So the one from traffic control actually is a little better pickup, and we will continue to use that. And we'll move down actually a Ford Ranger that's in kind of tough shape. Okay. Or maybe Brett can get that one.
Does it still have the floor in it?
It does.
If it does, then we don't need it.
Other questions on the motion?
One quick question. Are these the emergency vehicles to take home and stuff, or not?
No, these are actually just the work vehicles for the daytime. The one in traffic control used to get taken home, but this will not be taken home. This will be in the shop and used during the day.
Okay. And the only reason I asked is I see they have the auto starts, and I was just wondering why the extra for the auto starts if they're not.
In a lot of cases, they're out in the field for lengthy periods of time, and if it's bad weather conditions or whatever, they'll start it just ahead of getting in so that they're not getting into a cold pickup again. Good question. I asked the same thing, because we have not done remotes in the past.
Other questions on the motion? All in favor of approving those bids, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Bills presented for payment tonight. NVC phone charges, $463. South Dakota Department of Health lab work, $189. South Dakota One Cell locating, $64. Aqua Pure tech support, $325. Water treatment work for James Valley Co-op, $76. Title and license for a Chevy Camaro, $22. ETS merchants fees for the finance office, $1,250. We have 3 Parks and Rec merchant card processing fees, $3,700 to Dakota Bank, $1,000 each to Plug and Play and Infotech. $221 Dakota Transit providers dues. Bid revenue disbursement, $292. Matheson Trigas, $32 for ambulance oxygen. Fleet services monthly fuel charge, $188. Checks in the finance office, payable to Matt Parrott, $610. CVB December occupancy tax, $22,257, and Northwest Energy payment of $24. Is that a 4, Carl? $498.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Ruck, second by Lundsman. Questions on any bill? Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lundsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Motion carried. Lynn?
Thank you, Mayor Leveson. I have 3 items I'd like to highlight within my manager's report for tonight. First item, 2017 city accomplishments. We have put together a comprehensive listing of major accomplishments of all the departments, and this listing is posted on the front page of the city website, and just wanted you to know about that in case you had inquiries from citizenship as to our accomplishments. Second item, service line warranties. If you remember right, we were looking for an alternative back in 2014 to assist people with their responsibility of their service line, and so we entered into a cooperative agreement with Service Line Warranties. What we have seen is a gradual increase of enrollments as well as payments, but I think what you might find of interest is there's approximately 7,448 single-family homes. 12% of our client base is now under the Service Line Warranties program for water.
We have many claims?
The claims, for example, water claims, year 2017, there was 957 people under the program and 56 claims that were paid.
Worth it to them.
Sewer, 616 people are enrolled, 106 claims were paid.
Good.
Okay, the last item I would like to highlight, and I know you can read, but it kind of goes back to the same statement that our city attorney made earlier. You asked me at our last meeting to provide a memorandum as to thoughts in reference to potential financing for the educational campaign, and I would like to highlight parts of the memo that I provided you. If you'd be kind enough, Robin, could you flip over to my computer, please? Okay. We have enclosed for your consideration possible funding options for Northern State University and South Dakota School of Blind and Visually Impaired Educational Impact Campaign. The funding options listed below were a collaborative effort among Carl Alberts, Rob and Bob Zine, and myself. Us three traditionally work with the Capital Outlay Program on an annual basis, and that's why I chose the individuals to participate with this recommendation. Our proposals manage to maintain without decreasing money for repairing and replacing community infrastructure. Community infrastructure includes projects like chip seal, asphalt and concrete street repair, curb and gutter repair and replacement, accessibility improvements, stormwater ponds, Klein street improvements, minor arterial rehabs, and major collector streets reconstruction, and some Moccasin Creek improvements. The second penny tax is being recommended as the primary resource for funding the Educational Impact Campaign. We are recommending the expiring debt service payment for the old federal courthouse be reallocated. In addition, the reserve amount previously allocated for specialized computer facilities within the public safety facility be reallocated towards Educational Impact Campaign. We are recommending that promotion funds be considered as a probable resource for a portion of the Educational Impact Campaign pledge. And when you go and look forward to see what available dollars might be for the future, I want you to know will be somewhat restricted, because if in fact you try to use the same program for future requests, the nearest bond to expand in the future doesn't expire until 2025. So when you go to the second page of my memorandum, the debt service payment for the old federal building ceases at the end of 2018. The annual payment is $215,000. So if you take that $215,000 over a 10-year period, that's $2,150,000. The reserve payment to the police department to construct specialized IT services on the second floor of the public safety facility ceases at the end of 2019. And that's $100,000. So $100,000 at 10 years is $1 million. So the combined resources for these two previous payments equal $3,150,000 over a 10-year period, which is 63% of the desired contribution. We respectfully ask that the City Council consider any additional allocations from the promotion fund. I do want you to be aware of the fact that the existing ARC payment could also be considered for possible reallocation, because it will soon expire. But you should also know if in fact you try to take a portion of that, or if you take a majority of it, it will simply in effect bring negative consequences for the Phase 1 player field improvement project, which has been going forth for the last 2-year period. And so are there any questions with this memorandum?
You have one. On the police department one, you're talking about what is in there stays in there. That doesn't come out. It's just the amount that was switched over.
Right.
What you were talking about.
We created a reserve fund to do that improvements, and so that was an annual allocation, and so the reserve amounts will stay within the account. We're just taking the annual allocation and reallocating it for the future.
And that one is met its goal?
It will by the end of 2019.
We need to point out, too, that this is just the first step in what will eventually land in the lap of the budget process. I appreciate you giving us some things to think about as we head toward that. Mark?
Yeah. Can you tell me the remaining portion, that how much would have to come out of the promotional fund then to reach that goal? Do you know?
If you wanted to make the 5 million,
Yeah.
you would have to come up with another
$1,850,000 or
185,000 a year
Yeah.
times 10.
Okay. So they say we'll have plenty of time to think about it. Appreciate the work getting to this point. Lynn. Anything else?
Nothing. Thank you.
Anything from the council before we adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
Motion Olson, second Johnson to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.